This is Candor Talk. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get right into the show. But before we get into the show, don't forget to check out our website, sylviaexpress.com. What's up, fabulous people? Okay, I sincerely apologize. My family's been in town for the last couple of weeks, so I've just been busy with them and just enjoying family that came in town. So I apologize because I have not been able to do anything related to the madman and imposter in the White House. But man, the last couple of weeks have been whoa. Anyway, so I couldn't have imagined that Cohen, the most shameless lawyer enabler, would finally pack his bags and publicly break up with Trump and then condemn Trump repeatedly. But he did. But as a rational-minded person, I'm further surprised by the fact that Trump, being a scorned lover, would publicly attack Cohen, who has the power to bury Trump. Now listen, things have been on a downward spiral for the imposter for a while. He's never been over 50% in any poll. His base continues to shrink. Those identifying as Republicans has grown smaller. Although you'll hear that 90% of Republicans still support him. 87% of Republicans still support him. The amount of Republicans, those identifying as Republicans, has shrinked. Okay? His political capital is reducing. His scandals are increasing. The opposition globally has become more intense. His trade war is backfiring. His legal problems are mounting. His policy accomplishments are slim to none. He's receiving universal condemnation for his cowardly Helsinki-Summit, which backfired totally in its face, and I'll talk about that later, and universal condemnation for his barbaric border policies, and he has a rebellion in the Justice Department, intelligence communities, and the executive branch appointees. So things have been on a downward spiral, okay? However, majority of his public issues have been political. The Cohen drama is purely legal, and that's why it's most paramount in removing this fraudulent imposter in the White House. Now, Cohen has been sending messages to Trump letting him know that he's ready to start talking if Trump doesn't immediately intervene. Trump is absolutely powerless to help Cohen. That's the problem, okay? He's finished legally if he tries to help Cohen, and politically it would be untenable rebuke if he tried to. So Cohen started being more direct because he was realizing, okay, look, this fraud in the White House is not helping me. So he started being more direct and blunt with his rebuke. And recently, he spoke out again. Here it is.
Today, we were suddenly hit with the revelation that Trump's personal attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, recorded a conversation with Trump about payments to a former Playboy model who claimed a longtime affair, and that federal investigators now have that recording. Also today, separately, our own Reverend Al Sharpton happened to be with Michael Cohen having breakfast, a meeting which Cohen himself initiated. Cohen tweeted, quote, "I have known Reverend for almost 20 years.
Very troubled. He felt that he was being, in many ways, cast wrongly. And I feel that he was saying that he had been abandoned by Mr. Trump. He kept saying to me over and over again, Rev, I'm going to do what's right for the country. I'm going to do what's right for my family. He was very, very adamant that he was opposed to some of the things Mr. Trump was doing, like attacking the media. He felt that that was wrong. And it was a very, very serious Michael Cohen that I met with this morning about he was in a situation he feels he was unfairly thrust upon.
So, quite conveniently, and I'm just, this is absolutely interesting. Quite conveniently, Michael Cohen had absolutely no issues with the flagrant foul in the White House, legitimately attacking the media throughout the duration of his presidential campaign. Interestingly enough, though, when he's in all this legal jeopardy, all of a sudden it just really bothers him that the flagrant foul, the imposter in the White House, is attacking the media. It's not believable. It's just not credible. But nevertheless, let me just say this. Trump is the most flagrant foul in presidential history. And he's unwilling to recognize his legal landmines and avoid them. You avoid landmines so you don't get your leg blown off. He doesn't understand his legal landmines, and he doesn't avoid them. So he decides to basically threaten Cohen on Twitter. Here's what happened.
After avoiding questions Friday about a conversation secretly recorded by his former lawyer Michael Cohen, President Trump called the action inconceivable this morning, claiming on Twitter federal agents broke into Cohen's office when they actually had a warrant, and that the recording might be illegal.
Okay, let me just say something. For the record, the wiretap statute in New York is a one-party consent law, which means as long as one party to the conversation is recording it, it's permissible and perfectly legal. Therefore, if Cohen recording Trump while they were conversing in NY or any one-party state consent state. So, for example, if they were conversing, Trump was in New Jersey and Cohen was in New York. New Jersey is also a one-party consent state, so there would be no issue there. So, Trump has zero legal recourse. I highly doubt that Cohen was recording him when he was in a jurisdiction in which the wiretapping laws does not allow for that unless all the parties to the conversation consent. So those idle threats, they just aren't persuasive. Second, Cohen might be the most moronic lawyer after Rudy-Giuliani to ever practice law. However, I presume that he's aware of the Wiretap Act. So these idle threats, they just aren't persuasive, even to the dumbest lawyer, okay? But more importantly, Cohen and Trump both know what Cohen knows. Trump can pretend that he's completely insulated, but Cohen wouldn't be making public commentary about doing what's best for his family and the country if he has nothing to offer. What exactly are you going to do that's best for your family and for this country other than copying a deal and testifying? How are you going to help your family by going to prison? And the only way you can avoid going to prison is by offering some kind of evidence that's of value to the prosecutors. And how are you going to help the country? I mean, everybody in the country wants this flagrant imposter to be removed from the White House. The only way you're going to be able to help the country is by you testifying and giving over evidence to the prosecutors. You would not be saying that if you didn't have it. So that means Trump and Cohen, like I said, they both know what Cohen has and what Cohen knows. Therefore, for Trump to threaten an already vulnerable man was legal suicide. That's legal suicide. It's almost as if Trump wants to get removed from office. And believe you me, Trump, we want you to get removed too. We could all join in together and get you removed. There's several ways of doing that. If you're ever want to have that discussion, I am more than willing to have that discussion with you. Okay? And so seriously, you are not the only one that wants you removed from office, if that's what you're trying to do right now. But let's face it, Trump is unraveling at rapid speed. His incoherency and delusions are becoming more pervasive. Trump cannot afford to be at war with Cohen, who has done cover-up for Ivanka, the Fredo twins, and Trump. You cannot afford to be at war with someone like him. How can you be at war with the person who has the most information to be able to sink you? Now look, Trump needs to get on his knees and beg Cohen for forgiveness. If he wants to survive legally, he needs to be like, baby, I love you. You've always been my most useless lawyer. The most useless lawyer with the Trump organization. Remember the year I gave you the award for the most incompetent lawyer at the Trump organization? And everybody was clapping in your face but laughing at you behind your back? We shared good times, Cohen. Please come back so we can have some more embarrassing moments together at your expense. Come back, baby, come back. You need to get on your knees, Trump. I don't know what made you think that you could possibly do what you just did. That is literally legal suicide. And in all seriousness, it's not just Cohen, Trump. Everyone is breaking up with Trump. The relationships, Trump is a philanderer. So he has all these relationships. And all of these relationships are ending. They are ending. They're breaking up. The Trump-Helsinki-Summit, which I said I was going to talk about, was the biggest international embarrassment in modern history. Trump looked like a little miniature mouse next to Putin. He looked like a little mouse. So this really little mouse, okay? He betrayed his office and the United States. He has received rapid universal condemnation for siding with a dictator over his own intelligence community. That singular moment of unmitigated weakness and cowardice by Trump has had serious collateral consequences. The intelligence community, the DOJ, the CIA, the FBI, they've gone rogue. Here's what director-wray said.
There have also been stories that you threatened to resign.
As I said, I'm a low-key, understated guy, but that should not be mistaken for what my spine is made out of.
So you have
Leave it. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Look what he's basically saying is like, don't test me. Don't test me. And look, it's not just Ray. Listen to Dan Coates when he finds out that the flagrant foul, the imposter in the White House. And people always ask me, what do you mean by flagrant foul? Like, flagrant foul means you are just the biggest violation ever. In the history of violations, you are such a foul as a human being. That's what I mean when I say flagrant foul. But it's not just director-wray. Listen to Dan Coates when he's here. He's literally making fun of Trump, laughing at Trump's expense. Here he is.
We have some breaking news. The White House has announced on Twitter that Vladimir Putin is coming to the White House in the fall.
Say that again?
Vladimir Putin coming
Did I
to
hear
the...
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to be special.
We're up here without any devices or communication.
Okay, so he's basically just laughing at Trump because basically it's just such a preposterous proposal for you to bring a flagrantly abusive, dictator to the White House after you just humiliate yourself in front of the international community. You've basically embarrassed the United States, and now you're going to invite the person who had made you look like a little miniature mouse. You're going to invite that person to the White House. So Coates was like, what the... Okay. And then Rosenstein, just think about what Rosenstein did. Rosenstein deliberately releases those indictments of the 12 Russians right before the treason-summit. Because yes, it was a treason-summit. And then listen to Rosenstein's comments on those indictments. But let me just say something real quickly before I get into what Rosenstein said. The fact that Rosenstein released those indictments right before, and you can argue that Rosenstein just released those indictments or that they just got the indictment at that time, so therefore the timing of it wasn't coordinated with this Helsinki-summit. But that's just complete and total horseshit. Rosenstein deliberately did that in order to put Trump in a very tenuous and in a very complicated situation, knowing that he was going to the summit, meeting with this flagrant foul, also in Russia. He knew that he was going to be doing that, and so what does he decide to do? He decides to release those things right before that summit, putting Trump in a position where you either are going to choose between your own intelligence community, which we all know he did not do, or you're going to actually chastise this dictator that literally interfered in the United States democracy. Trump obviously chose not to chastise him because he's a little mouse. But anyway, listen to what Rosenstein says when he is basically giving a press conference about these indictments. Listen to what he says.
I want to caution you. The people who speculate about federal investigations usually do not know all of the relevant facts. We do not try cases on television or in congressional hearings. Most anonymous leaks are not from the government officials who are actually conducting these investigations. We follow the rule of law, which means that we follow procedures and we reserve judgment.
You know, it's so funny because Rosenstein reminds me of Elliot Ness. If you've ever seen The Untouchables, he reminds me of Elliot Ness, kind of, stone cold, completely committed, public servant. That's exactly how I look at Rosenstein. That's how I look at him. He looks exactly like Elliot Ness, too, the way he combs his hair and everything else. But nevertheless, that's irrelevant. But Rosenstein was basically saying, don't listen to the congressional crazy conspiracists on the GOP side. Ignore them. Because this is about the rule of law. And that's what we followed to get to this particular point. So stop listening to those people who were sitting here trying to enable an imposter in the White House. Is basically what Rosenstein was basically trying to say. And it wasn't just, it wasn't just Ray. It wasn't just Coates. It wasn't just Rosenstein. There was also Peter-Strzok, who the Republicans decided to bring before the congressional hearing and got literally beat up by Peter-Strzok and the Democrats. And let me just tell you something. This show is probably going to go over today because there's a lot of things I wanted to talk about. But let me just say something, too. Also, I only want to talk about things that are consequential. I'm not going to talk about things that are inconsequential because inconsequential things are not going to get us to the promised land. And the promised land is getting rid of the imposter in the White House. So those things that I don't think are going to shape or change the trajectory that we're going on, I really don't care to talk about them. So, for example, whether or not Donald Trump is cheating on his wife, is irrelevant to me. That's not something that's necessarily going to get us over the finish line. The finish line is getting us to the point where this flagrant foul is removed from the White House. So the things that I want to talk about are things that are consequential to this. And so, for example, this Peter-Strzok hearing, let me just go back to that. This Peter-Strzok hearing was consequential for numerous reasons because it was a turning point. It was a point in which you could tell that that they had it. They had had it with the bullshit that was coming from Trump and his enablers. So Peter-Strzok, I want you to hear some of what he said to Trey Gowdy that literally got him a whole bunch of people just started clapping after he said this. Here it is.
Suggestion that I, in some dark chamber somewhere in the FBI, would somehow cast aside all of these procedures, all of these safeguards, and somehow be able to do this is astounding to me. It simply couldn't happen. And the proposition that that is going on, that it might occur anywhere in the FBI, deeply corrodes what the FBI is in American society, the effectiveness of their mission, and it is deeply destructive.
Okay, that Peter-Strzok hearing was just not what Republicans had anticipated, okay? That was not what they were anticipating. They were expecting to go in there and find a punching bag, and they got punched right back. And as a matter of fact, they were, retracting. And if you've paid attention, have you been hearing all this stuff about Peter-Strzok afterwards? You know, you get beat up, you don't typically want to go back and fight that person again. That's basically what happened to them. And this open rebuke from these intelligence communities and from, these governmental agencies, it's not accidental. They say that after the Peter-Strzok hearing, the FBI, DOJ, etc., they were pissed and ready to revolt because of how he was treated. Now, like I said, even after, there's certain things that just aren't consequential to me. I really do not care if Peter-Strzok had an affair with his wife. That is between him and his wife. I also don't care if the flagrant foul imposter, fraudulent con man in the White House had cheated on all his wives. That's really not our business. It's between him and his wives. It's not really our moral position to actually judge anybody. So that perspective of him, whether he was cheating on his wife, is something that his wife and him have to deal with and that he has to deal with on his own. And it's really none of our business. So those are the things that when I say that I talk about things that are consequential and things that are I'm not going to talk about things that are inconsequential. Him having an affair on his wife is inconsequential. And the fact that was being brought up during his hearing is just foul. It is just so foul. I really would like to say to the GOP, you guys really don't want people to start digging into your own particular backgrounds because we all know that you guys all have skeletons, okay? So just let's just not even go there. But anyway, this whole thing was it's not accidental. This was after the Helsinki, thing, after Peter Strzok, and then after the Helsinki. Things changed. And the thing is, Trump even further fractured his base by showing himself to be a weakling. He was a spineless jellyfish, a Squidward. He was a SpongeBob. And you have to go read SylviaExpress.com on Monday. I will be releasing those regrets. I promise you I will be releasing them. His base think he's a Squidward. His backbone is Squidward, okay, from SpongeBob, okay? And he's benefited from the illusion of strength. The perception of strength for those yearning for it is a powerful thing. Trump has never been a strong man. As George Will said in The Scathing Comment, he's basically what a wannabe strongman looks like. That's what George Will said in a column. He's basically what a wannabe strongman looks like, but he's a weak guy. His Helsinki-Summit, a.k.a. the Treason-Summit, was a catastrophic mistake. Because in that moment, the perception of strength was demystified. No one believes any further that he's strong. What they saw was a weak, very weak, and timid man who didn't even have the spine to confront a tyrant who had attacked the United States. Trump is very good at abusing those who he believes have no recourse. He will batter and attack those he perceives as weak. His presumption is that the NATO allies, don't have any choice but to deal with his attacks. Because of that long-standing relationship, he believes they don't have any recourse. There's nothing they can do if he attacks them. So he uses them to project political strength. But he's not. He's a coward. He's a performer. He's not a legitimate president. He attempts to project this false sense of machismo by arguing that he told Putin off in that meeting. So in retrospect, he has an interview with CBS, and this is what he basically says. He told Putin in that meeting he was really strong with Putin. Here's what he said. Here it is.
Putin specifically, do you hold him personally responsible? Well, I would, because he's in charge of the country, just like I consider myself to be responsible for things that happen in this country. So certainly, as the leader of a country, you would have to hold him responsible, yes.
What'd you say to him?
Very strong on the fact that we can't have meddling, we can't have any of...
We all know that never happened. He was like, yes, Mr. Putin Master, sir. Can I pour you some tea and wash your feet, kind sir? I really like you, Mr. Putin Master. Sir, please don't tell him about the PP tape. Like, come on, man. We're supposed to believe that you went in there. You went in there and said, oh, you better not have any more meddling. And Putin was like, here's the PP tape. What'd you say? Trump was like, oh, no, Master, sir. I just take it back. To take it back. Who in the world believes that this coward that we saw standing right there in front of Putin, who did not have the balls to condemn Putin to his face, who believes right now that he went in that room and strongly condemned Putin? Get the hell out of here. There's not a single solitary person in the entire world that believes that you went and did that. Even your own base, or shall I say those that are leaving your base, don't believe that. Putin was smirking the whole time because he knew he had a dancing buffoon, a jester, standing next to him. Nevertheless, that singular performance was a turning point. Let me just say something. Between the breakup with Cohen, that has magnified his legal problems, and the catastrophic Pussy Boy Treason-Summit, which magnified his political problems, it's safe to say that Trump is hanging in there on a very, very thin thread, and that's breaking. That thread is breaking because his fat ass is weighing it down. I'll be right back.
Make a dawn in this. Drop that bomb buckler. I'm feeling like $1 million. Cutting up just for the money. We like nip and tuck. Jet like Benny from the Sandlot. Cost 50,000 for my Hancock. Baby, riding to the top. Driving haters crazy, never gonna stop. I'm feeling like $1 million. Cutting up just for the money, we like nip and tuck. Wrist watch, tip top, pockets on a milli. Give a toast to all my people, we like dilly dilly. Pilot boys staying fly, Super Bowl like Philly. When they ask me if I'm fly, I'm like really. 3 steps ahead, staying on the move. Don't listen to the gossip, it's barely ever true.
All right, fabulous people. Thank you so much for staying with us. And I have to get into what I have to say today because, always the second half, I need to talk to somebody. And the second half, I'm always talking to someone. And let me just say something. I don't presume that all Trump supporters are racist, bigoted, xenophobic, or misogynistic. However, I do presume that if you still support him, then you are woefully dismissive of that at a minimum or completely accepting of it at worst. Let's just discuss a short rendition of Trump's greatest hits. He said Mexico is sending over rapists and criminals without proof. He sent out a tweet claiming falsely and stupidly that majority of whites are killed by black people when most whites are killed by other whites. He started a war with NFL and calls those peacefully protesting racial injustice sons of bitches. He sends his spineless VP to create a charade at an NFL game. He calls women pigs, nasty, ugly. He said he could assault women because he was famous. He would grab them by the pussy. He has utter disregard for marital vows or his wives. He even degraded his own daughter by saying he'd be dating her if she wasn't his daughter and discussing her body. He has created policies that discriminate against Muslims, Hispanics, immigrants, and foreigners. I could go on, but frankly, it's abundantly clear that he's a bigot, an ignorant, uninformed, inept, misogynistic, racist, utterly stupid bigot. He's over 70 years old. I don't expect him to change. However, it's those of you that brazenly support him and then argue that he's none of those things that I just listed. Those are the ones that I'm talking about. You think that by denying this, you can protect yourself from the shame and stain this will cause you? Some of you are openly racist and bigoted. Therefore, I'm not talking about you. You're getting the stupidity and ignorance you dreamed of while your life doesn't get any better, but at least you can sleep better at night in your cardboard box knowing your president is one of you. No, I'm not trying to persuade you to change. Stay right where you are on the downward spiral into oblivion as your depravity hasn't advanced your life one bit. I'm talking to the pretenders, the ones that act like they don't know he's racist, xenophobic, homophobic, misogynistic, Islamophobic, fraudulent imposter. You have callously attempted to pretend your support of this abomination, the White House, is based on his policies. You lied. Not one policy he implemented is helping you. Did you get that symbolic wall that wouldn't have deterred illegal immigration anyway? Did you get that infrastructure plan? Did you get health care for everybody? Did Hillary get a second special counsel for the non-existent crimes you guys have delusional fascination with? When can we anticipate that check from Mexico for that wall, or should we just take Mexico at their word when they told him to go fuck himself? Are the high gas prices and cost of goods part of what you voted for? Were the tweets and rhetoric without action what you wanted? Was it a charade, a gesture for a president that you voted for that makes you pleased he's exceeded expectations as the biggest presidential buffoon? No, you are equally content with his bigotry. But I'm calling you out. There isn't anyone that will forget what you accepted in order to support a man who is gravely unfit to hold any office anywhere on the planet. You are equally complicit. You are equally shameful. Therefore, hold your badge of shame with pride now. As when history writes this story, it will judge you equally as Trump. You helped enable this, and unless you rectify this, his stain on this country will be by your consent. You won't get the benefit of retrospect, as you were warned time and time again about his unfitness and utter depravity. You stood silently and pretended to be blind to reality in order to protect and defend the most shameful man in modern history, which makes you equally detestable and regrettable. Alrighty. That does it for me, guys. Yeah, I'm out. Alright, so don't forget to check out SylviaExpress.com because I promise you guys, I am going to post those regrets. I have them. I definitely made sure that I did that. And then that show I keep telling you guys I'm going to do, I promise you I'm going to do it this week. Oh my God, getting distracted sometimes is just terrible. But let me just tell you guys, I had to do this makeup show because I want to make sure that you guys understand there's no way I'm going anywhere until the imposter fraud in the White House is gone. And even after that, I'm going to continue to talk about the corruption and try to clean up the corruption in Washington, at least speak out against the corruption in Washington until we clean up the stain that this imposter flagrant foul has left on the White House and left on our political system. So anyway, guys, enjoy your week this week, and I will be back next week. And don't forget to check out SylviaExpress.com. Okay, and another thing. You're going to have a better week than Trump because guess what? You're not under investigation and you didn't just break up with your boyfriend. Have a good one.